Hey everyone, welcome to Ink Scribes, the comics podcast where we discuss the art and craft of comics. I'm Colin Singh, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Eric Zawadzki and Taylor Stauft. Today, a very special episode. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. We have a special guest, Deniz Camp, who, humbly in my opinion, is the most important writer in comics today. He's currently writing Marvel's The Ultimates and also Absolute Martian Manhunter coming out next month from DC. And also coming out next month is his collaboration with my best bro and the show's very own host, Eric, for Assorted Crisis Events from Image Comics.
So I was gonna read.
Hold on. That's an insane introduction.
Insane introduction.
Very, very kind. Thank you. All the facts of it are true, but the humbly most important thing I cannot.
No, well, actually, I'll tell you a story though about that. Quick before we get into it when Eric told me about 20th Century Man, I hadn't really heard of it. I was kind of out of the loop at that time, but when I went to visit him, he gave me the floppies, the 6 issues. I read the first one like cover to cover. I just sat there and I just read it and read it. I'm like, this is something I have to have. So I ordered the trade online. I finished it, and I just reread it again last night in preparation for this show. It'd been like yet less than a year before I read it before, and like the perspectives and the ideas you're introducing in that book really makes you think. And I think it's a really important work, especially for the 20s. In the 2020s, this one has got to be on the list for sure.
Why you got to make people think all the time, Dennis?
Yeah. It's just how it comes out. It's just how it comes out.
So I was going to read the whole thing, but as the description for Assorted Crisis Events. But I think the elevator pitch that came with it is a lot more succinct. Assorted Crisis Events is a crisis on infinite Earths if it was happening to normal people, or Black Mirror of if time and space itself were breaking down. Which, having read the first few, the breakdown. That's exactly what's coming across. Just the difference between each one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was I think that was kind of the goal of the series was for both of us to kind of reinvent the storytelling and the story each time and make you, I don't know, just give you something new every time, but somehow all linked. Everyone's kind of linked, and in this struggling with this giant thing that they can't even wrap their heads around. But each one feeling different was really exciting to both of us. I think, Eric, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, definitely. The genesis of it, the genesis of me coming on board, I guess, is just I'm just being mauled by my cat right now. Sorry.
Love.
Yeah, it is. It comes about from our discussions about the craft of comics and just how we get into it on a more granular sense, I guess. Yeah. And and I guess we'll get into later on just like how the comic started and how our collaboration started. But I'm glad you could join us. You've had you're in the midst of just this whirlwind career-wise. I think, like, I don't know how much you can get into, but you've been doing a lot of traveling related to...
I can't talk about any of that.
Oh, okay. Well, Dennis is up to super secret career-related stuff, which involves a lot more travel than he's used to. So
that's right. That's right.
So it's nice that you have the time, because we chat like every day, and you barely have time to write these days with all this.
Well, I'm going to MegaCon, and I don't know when this is going to come out, but I'm going to MegaCon next week, and that'll be my first like out of state con in a very long time. A very long time. I think since Emerald City quite a while ago, since before the pandemic, certainly. So so it's just a whirlwind, but it's exciting to get to talk to people about the work. And right now, mostly it's about Ultimates because that's what's been coming out. But I'm really pumped for people to see Assorted Crisis Events, and you know how much much I love that book and how proud I am of that work. So
hell yeah. We did want to go through a bit of 20th Century Men just as like an introduction for people. This was your first image book, right? It was because you had worked with Oni before. I want to say
I was I worked. My first thing was a short with Image actually. So technically, my first thing was with Image. It was like a 5-page short for Mark Miller's Miller World, and it was in the universe of his Starlight world. And it was like I won a talent contest, and that got published. So actually, my first published work was through Image, even though it wasn't anything that I owned. Which is some kind of accomplishment, I think, to get an Image book to get your work published in an Image book that you don't have any ownership in. And so that was an awesome opportunity. And then after that, I did something at Vault, a book at Vault Comics. And then, but 20th Century Men, and then there was quite a long fallow period where I was working on stuff. And one of the things was 20th Century Men. And, and that was really with Stepan. And I really feel like I grew a lot making that book. And that's part of why I love it so much is Stepan and I became very close. And I also just feel like I really found my voice as a writer and just grew a lot. I just feel I was a very different writer before I started this book and when I finished it.
I feel like it's not a lot of writers that will admit, oh yeah, I learned a lot from this artist.
Oh yeah, I will happily admit that like that's the joy of working on comics is like every book is a learning opportunity, and every artist has something to teach me, or most of them. I don't want to say every one of them, obviously, but all the ones that I work with so far have had something really interesting to teach me about the form, and they each have their own kind of like ways of approaching it and philosophies, and I could get into that, and maybe we'll get into that later, but because I don't want to reduce artists to like one thing, but it's certainly interesting always to pick their brains and see how they tell stories, and then to try to work with them and play into that and give them ideas kind of in the vein of the type of thing that they like to do, and you know what I mean? Like it makes me grow as a writer as well. I see a different way of doing things, and I can take that and run with it. And now it seems like I'm reinventing myself, when really, it's the influence of the artist and the inspiration of the artist that allows me to try something different with voice or whatever, or story.
Right on. So yeah.
So speaking to that, actually, so we're covering 20th Century Men first, which is good. I thought I was going to save this for later, but has it made you change your way of thinking in terms of, like, we'll get into it, assorted crisis events, but each issue is one story, self-contained, and in the like, does it make you want to explore certain story formulas differently? Like, say everything happens in 24 hours, or whatever the case may be, and like kind of push the art form that way a little bit. Another example is like Alan Moore. No, just for comics in general, like for new ideas, for new books that you want to produce in the future. I mean, in terms of storytelling formula, or just like even how Alan Moore did that issue of Prometheus, it was all just one image. Would you have you changed your way of thinking to start pushing it? Yeah, that way.
That's Assorted Crisis Events in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, what you're talking about is form. You're talking about formalism and formal experimentation in comics, and
correct.
Alan Moore was and is the king of that. You could go. I mean, Watchmen is the most famous of that. And so that was one of the first things that I was interested in comics, weirdly. Like if you go back to my first big comic, which was called Maxwell's Demons, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of formal play. Was it very, very deft formal play? No, but it was it was very focused on that. And actually with this book, what I learned was much more about focusing on people and the humanity of people, and that being my great interest and the thing that moved me most. And instead of trying to play a lot of formal games, really just focusing on that. That's what Stepan really taught me, and because he drew the emotions of these characters and the faces of these characters so well, and I really wanted to make you feel for them and make you love them. And so that was really what I learned from 20th Century Men. And then I've always really been interested in the formal capacity, the formal capacities of comics, and what you can do with the form. And that's what Eric and I bonded over all those years ago at a bar after New York Comic Con. And so it was really about sort of Crisis Events is kind of melding those two things, I think. Whereas the formal stuff is really fun and important, but it's all there to serve the character and the story that we're trying to tell, and to create an effect in the reader, a very specific effect and a different effect each time. And so it's not just there to play a game or to see if you can do it. It's like it's there to make all of the stuff that we're doing in the story hit harder and make it all felt more deeply by the reader.
Yeah. Which is a difficult high wire act, because you can go a little too far into the formal aspects, and then kind of the characterization becomes secondary.
Exactly.
And in other aspects, you can, not play with the form at all and just be pure character. But I know from our extensive conversations, character is the number one, and that you have actually sacrificed a lot of clever storytelling stuff because it's not in service of the character.
Yeah, I absolutely. That's absolutely. If it has to be in service of the character and the story both, and really the story is the character always. So it's one and the same. But yeah, I think just because you come up with a clever idea doesn't mean you need to use it. And sometimes it's like or a clever line of dialogue. If it doesn't sound right in that character's voice, then it's that off note, in an otherwise hopefully perfect piece. And so you really have to pay attention to everything and make sure you're not just showing off. That's the worst. That's absolutely the worst, is when you feel like somebody's just doing something to impress you. Hopefully I'm not too guilty of that. And again, that was part of what I learned in doing 20th Century Men, is just don't try to impress people. Just try to be true.
This 2-pager is completely that in a nutshell. I think, like, these. Yeah. It's funny, you have, the last several books have been sort of military themed, or revolutionary, which, hanging out with you're not really that guy. But when I read this sequence right here, like, this feels so genuine, and it feels like it was written by somebody who was in a foxhole somewhere or something.
Yeah, that comes from a lot of research, So I read a lot of first-hand accounts and interviews and memoirs. And so not that this exact thing happened, but it's a 2-page spread dedicated to masturbation and dick jokes as well, which I'm really proud of. And I think this is why I got into the biz. But no, that's how people talk, and that can only come either through personal experience or through copious research, and I think, depending on the book, I do, and a little bit of both, really melding the two. It has to come from a true place in you for it to be true, even if you didn't experience that exact thing. You know what I mean? And there's something universal. There's something universal that connects kind of all of us, and so you can get there with enough research, I think.
That actually has me wondering something, because looking at this page, I wouldn't have thought, oh, this is about masturbation and dick jokes. This is, just a bunch of guys connecting, staying warm together. It's got a very primal community feel. Was that in the script that you sent to him? Like, no, this is what needs to be communicated.
Yes, for sure. This whole sequence, we talk a lot about, like, what is the feeling, more than I do like what all this dialogue was there, with a few changes later. All the dialogue was there, but it's much more important, like, for this. I think this was like a 2-page scene, and it's much more important about talking about, like, the what's it supposed to make people feel, the solemnity of it, the camaraderie of it. There should be a beauty to it, a warmth, like a humanity to these characters. We have a couple of pages to make us care about these characters, in a really positive way. And there's all these little details, like they're not passing the drink around to the reporter character, like they're passing it around him and stuff like that Stepan put in there, and then it comes back around at the end where when he's finally accepted, like they hand him something, and so at the end when he comes through his journey or whatever, and he's kind of accepted into the group, and they hand him soup, and so it's like all these little gestures and stuff that we talk about, and that it's not one or the other. It's not like I said do that. It's like it kind of came out of the collaboration of us, and I think Eric and I have similar stories like that. So
that's great to hear.
Something I wanted to bring up was that it probably takes a couple of issues to understand your collaborator. I like you. This is probably the first time. This is the first time you've worked with Stepan. I think there's probably some like loose earlier collaborations that didn't quite pan out.
No.
Oh, okay. But the first couple of issues might. I'm just wondering how much it changed over time, your process from like the first script to the sixth script. Because I know from working with you from Ace, you have said like the first two scripts you wrote were not necessarily 100% geared towards me, because that was before I was 100% in. And then it was only the later scripts that were definitely purely written for me.
Yeah. You learn. I mean, again, on this book, so the thing is, like, you and I have really known each other for a while. So that was like I knew what you were good at, and I knew what you liked to do, and I kind of knew how you worked. With Stepan, it was much more a thing of discovery. So the first issue, he changed a ton, and that was really like nothing about what I had written. Like, it was everything that I wanted was there, but in a different way, or a lot of it was in a different way, and so it forced me to change. Like I was re-dialoguing everything. I had like 4 or 5 different versions of like every scene in 20th Century Men for the first 2 issues, and then kind of by the end, it was much. I still spent a lot of time on it, and I still had a ton of options, but it was much more. I was always writing full scripts, but like I also understood that I didn't always have to. Like, if I didn't have a super strong idea for how something should be laid out, I could just say like, here's what happens, and here's what here's all the emotions, and then here's the dialogue, and go for it. And then other times, if it was the scene where I had a really strong idea about like everything that was going on, you get like 10 pages for like 2 comic book pages of like background and like and formal stuff, and like and so it became a mix, and Stepan really loved that. Stepan really enjoyed that kind of like improvisational feel to it, and that back and forth. And I was always responding to the art. That was like a really big thing. I was like, the scripts that I turned in were the plot, all the structure was the same, but in terms of like what the dialogue was and how everything played out, that I was rewriting after the art came back, just constantly, and that was an experience. That was something to learn, and kind of, I was kind of nervous about it at first, because like you're not sure if you're going to be able to perform when somebody else does their thing, like you have to respond to that. And like, if it's not your vision, are you going to be able to come up with something that's good, given that they've changed the beats or the rhythm or whatever? And I found I gained a lot of confidence in doing that, because I found I was actually able to come up with better stuff. As long as I could trust my collaborator to tell the story in the best way possibly visually, then I found what happened was I'd be inspired to come up with something better, in terms of textually. So I learned a ton, we were learning all the way through the process, and it was very intense and beautiful. It was a beautiful experience.
And it was a long process, because I remember I stayed with you in New York for New York Comic Con. I think it was 2019, I think. Okay. And you had original art for the first issue of 20th Century Men, even though that first issue didn't come out until I think mid 2022, was it?
Maybe, yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean the pandemic happened and that really threw everybody for a loop. And then I had like health problems, and not pandemic related, but everything was like shut down because of the pandemic, so it was hard to get treatment. And this was like in the early days of the pandemic, and so there was like, there was like 6 months where we didn't work on it at all, and then we started back up, and we completed 3 issues without having the formal go ahead from Image, which was also really scary. And but also, it was also kind of put in us this feeling of like, let's just do this, and we're doing it for ourselves, and whatever happens happens. And yeah, and so it took a long time, but not just because we were working on it the entire time. However, I was thinking about things for all that time, right? So like issue 4, it didn't take me a year to write, but that I'd been thinking about it for a year. That was like the issue where all the captions are coming from different books and time periods and stuff. And so
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'd been thinking about it a lot, and I was trying a bunch of different things, and just because I wanted to get this feeling of like of a battle that was, I wanted to feel appropriately big. I wanted it to feel appropriately important because it was important in this war, and I couldn't come up. I just didn't know what it was going to be, how I could convey that to the audience. And I tried like third person omniscient, but I like trying to get something like Tolstoy's War and Peace out of it, and I just don't. I'm not Tolstoy, it turns out. Like I don't have a cult in me. I can't start a cult. I don't have that kind of authority. So I went with like a prismatic thing, where there's not one perspective on the war, but there's 4 often contradictory, competing perspectives on the war, and I thought that might do it. So
yeah, I was going to ask actually. So I mean, issue 4 specifically, like the different types of passages from different textbooks and autobiographies and of all these different characters and stuff. Like you said, you thought about it for a year, but how long had this story and that mindset had been like in your head until you actually started putting it down as 20th Century Men? Like what kind of ideas came together that you wanted to tell this specific story, and how long ago?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I didn't start. We started working on it in what? I take your word, Eric, that it was 2019.
I saw original art for it. Okay. I got to hold it.
we were working on it. I came up with the idea not too long before we started working on it, and then once I came up with the idea, I just bought a ton of books, which there aren't that many about the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So I think I've read pretty much all of them, and I was reading a ton of that. I was reading a ton of Russian literature in general. I was reading a ton of interviews with Russians during post and pre-Soviet, or post and during Soviet Union. And then I was reading a lot of books about Afghanistan, and that was taking place all throughout the process of writing. And so that's the other reason why the book kept developing and changing shape and changing form, is because I was constantly learning new things. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I came set with like, this is the story that I'm going to tell, and this is what I'm going to happen. This is what's going to happen. It was like, I'm learning stuff about, I'm learning stuff, and the story is changing, and I'm working with Stepan and seeing what he's good at, and the story is changing. And so it felt very alive to me at the time, because even until I was writing issue 6, I wasn't sure like exactly what the end was going to be and how it was going to end. And a lot of that I found in the writing of it, and in the research of it.
Yeah, I was really impressed with your portrayal of Afghanistan. I thought it was quite honest, and it was genuine, really.
I tried to tell human stories, and just treat people like people.
That's how it felt, for sure.
And thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
How open to all the fluidity of what sounds like the fluidity of the creation process was Image? Because like, I get that you own it, you and Stepan own it, and but they're the ones producing it. Were they cool, or are they?
They're ice cold. I mean, they don't care at all. They have zero. That's the beauty of working with Image. So you can do whatever you want as long as you get the files to them at the right time in the drop. You know what I mean? That's what
Oh,
that's what
okay.
it is. And that is, to me, that's the promise of Image. That is the potential of Image. That is the responsibility of Image. That if you can have as many pages as you want. You can have you know what I mean? You can suddenly make it prose. You can you can have no idea what's coming. Like, you can do whatever you want with this comic, like uh, within reason. And even if if you make it too sexy or something, they'll find a like. I've heard of comics being too graphic, so they have to like switch printers because the printer won't print something. But they'll find that for you. Like, they're not going to stop you from printing it if you want to print it, for the most part. I mean, I'm sure they would stop something that was like against their morals, like if you were going to do pro-Nazi stuff or something. But
Right.
it's the freedom that they afford you is incredible, and it is a huge responsibility, in my opinion, and one that I take very seriously. And we did on 20th Century Men. Like, they don't get involved at all in the decision making process. So you should push the kinds of stories that you're telling. I think like they don't. There's no editorial notes. There's just proofreading notes, and then you should. And you should play with the form as much as possible, because there's no one there to stop you. Like, and there's nobody there. It's your thing. You own all of it. So or you and your collaborators own all of it. And so, yeah, it's just an incredible system, I think. And only that's the only place in comics that you would be able to put out something like 20th Century Men, and the only place you could put out something like Assorted Crisis Events.
Right down to like the paper, the cover stock, like they send you options, and it's just sort of ABC, pick one, like which is pretty cool. I have the benefit of this being your second Image book, so you're kind of guiding me along, basically saying, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. Whereas I'd imagine when you were doing 20th Century Men, it was not, you didn't have a guiding hand so much.
It was terrifying. Let me tell you. We did have a guiding hand because Aditya Bidikar, our letterer, had done a bunch of Image books, but it wasn't the same as having had, having had the experience myself, of course. And he was on top of things well enough, but like he was also on a bunch of other books. Whereas, so yeah, I was terrified constantly and like nervous constantly that if we didn't get stuff on, in on exactly the right time and exactly the right date, everything was going to collapse. And then there was also like Stepan didn't really know, Stepan didn't know about a lot of the printing rules. So there was like stuff like the black that he used as the colorist on, in the first issue was such that it was so deep that it would like wrinkle the paper, and like it would make it warp. Yeah. Wow. So they were like, and they figured this out, but I was freaking out. I was like, we got too much black on here. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what they're talking about, and like, and so, and then they're like, no, you got to lower the whatever. I don't know what even still, I still don't know what exactly, but like, there's a mix. There's like an appropriate mix, a color mix for to make black that won't destroy the paper. And it's just one of those things that you have to know. And also just knowing how things will print, as a colorist. Like, if you're a colorist who's who's made a bunch of comics, who's printed a lot of things through Image or through even American printing, how things are going to show up in the final version, or you can have a pretty good idea. Whereas Stepan had no idea, and neither did I. So
I mean, I still don't even know
right.
a lot of that stuff.
No, come on, you've done a lot.
Well, when it comes to coloring, at least,
yes.
I haven't gone down that path too much.
Yeah, but you do a lot. Like, you play with layers and stuff like that so much, so you know how to create depth and do stuff, and kind of have an idea of how it's going to print if the colorist picks up your baton and runs with it.
Yeah, there was always just there was some surprising stuff that seems obvious after the fact that I didn't know about, which is just like, oh, you have to actually go out and register the trademarks for this stuff.
Yeah.
Which I've been published by smaller indie publishers, and they just take care of everything, right? You just hand in the art files, and so there's always a lot of these tiny little things that I guess you have to find out when you get an Image book. Was there any other big surprises or small surprises?
I mean, about the business side of it, Not really. I guess this time I'm a little I'm not surprised, but I did not. There's a lot of promotion that you're doing for these things, and how much time do you have to actually write? Is the amount of writing versus like talking to people about the writing that you've done is different from what I expected, or even what it's been previously, because it's kind of like, anyway, it doesn't matter. I think the real thing though, as a writer, is with on an image book, you do have to pick your team, and you do have to like have opinions about everything. Like, I think if you're on like a DC book or a Marvel book, you don't really need to have any opinions on the art. You don't need to have any opinions on the coloring. You don't need to have an opinion on the lettering. In fact, you're not really, I mean, you're not encouraged to have opinions on those things. So, and so the great thing about doing an image book as a writer is, like, it's not the same as being able to, you should ideally, if you want to do an image book and you're a writer, you should draw it, you should letter, you should color, you should just to see what it's like. I don't have that time, so I don't know how to do those things. But doing an image book, I got to have I learned to have opinions about those things because somebody had to have them, and even something as simple as there's a tombstone, and the thing is written on the tombstone, but it just looks like perfect. There's no deprecation, and so to be able to say, like, to ask for some deprecation on the on the tombstone, so that the writing looks weathered instead of looks like it was printed on there. Things like that drive me insane. Or like signage. Signage drives me insane when it doesn't look like signage and it's just something.
It looks like another layer on the page. Drives me mad as well.
It's like all those little things, but you have to, and to have opinions on coloring, and to have opinions on lettering when something works and when something doesn't, and to want to experiment with those things. Like a lot of the lettering stuff, I suggested that we try this, and that's really, I learned that, and it's a storytelling tool in comics. So like for this, Eric, one thing I was like, I encouraged / forced you to learn how to do sound effects really well, because bad sound effects kind of drive me insane, and also because sound effects are an important storytelling tool, and you nailed it, and you made them so looking at this part right here, like you made them so essential to the pages. It's beautiful, you know what I mean? Like, and issue 2 even more so, you did that. And
the key is integrating it into the art so that it's of one whole, because I think, we agree on that, which is when the lettering or the special effects looks like a different hand was involved, or it looks like there was another layer on top. And I think that's one of the things that we gel on, is that we both care so much about the process of the comics from A to Z. And I think we both want to be the last people to look at it before it goes to the printer. Whereas like with a lot of comics, it's just like an artist is like, okay, I drew it and I got to get on to the next page because there's not enough hours in the day.
And
you don't look at the lettering or everything else. But even though we don't have a lot of time, we obsessively need to see that before it goes to the printer.
Look at this page, like, beautiful. The TikTok's going down, and then the braca going across on one panel, and then it becomes an explosion in the next to show time passing as you pull out. I mean, it's just, and the krakum underneath, like all of it works together so beautifully to make what could be such a boring page into such a beautiful page. It's so beautiful, even though what is happening? A girl is looking at a clock and something explodes outside the window. You know what I mean? Like it's just mind blowing to me. And it, and I've seen you, like I said, you weren't always so good at sound effects. I think you learned it for actually the Bloodshot issue or something, you said, or you tried to improve a lot for it. And it's like, and here it is, like in full effect, just absolutely gorgeous. So important to the storytelling of not, it's not just a thing. It's not just trying to convey something. It's creating rhythm. It's creating beats. You know what I mean? Like, it's creating wonder. I don't know. I love that. It's just,
and I feel like it was all there in the script for me to just sort of like, I don't know, grab and
I mean, it is in the script that I do use sound effects as a storytelling tool. Like especially on the previous page with the clock and all of that. Like, and that was, it's absolutely, that stuff is in the script, but for you to nail it and then run with it, it's just. But you, as a writer,
weird melding of both of us. That is the weird thing about comics.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Eric, I remember you telling me that you had really pushed yourself in the structure of this, I guess, the form. Deniz, is that part of why you wanted to work? Like, I mean, you get to work with your friend. That's always great. But when when I think of Eric's art, I think of his use of time on this 2D surface as like, oh, nobody does it better. Was that part of why you wanted to get him involved in this?
Yeah, for sure. I think we both really enjoy playing with like the formal possibilities of comics, and Eric is so good at it, and so we're really in sync in that way. Like, this is all about time, and time is so important in comics because time and space are the same in comics, and so and that's a spoiler, I guess, for a future issue maybe. But anyway, but so I think I see what Eric is doing, and I've been impressed with it since the Dregs, I think, was the first thing that I saw, and then I also really love it. I think we're inspired by a lot of the same comics and inspired by the medium itself, and then so it really is me like saying, okay, I want to do a really formally inventive, formally challenging comic and play a lot of formal tricks or maybe or games to get these feelings across, to get these emotional feelings across. And I just knew that Eric, so I absolutely, that's why I wanted to work with Eric, because I knew that he would nail it, but then not nail it in the sense of accomplish my vision, but elevate my vision, elevate, understand what I'm going for, and then be able to do it better than what I can describe by adding a bunch of his expertise and his creativity, and that's really been the experience of this book, and with every member of the team.
Actually, do you remember the genesis of how we started working together on this? Putting you on the spot.
I mean, you tell me. I don't know what part you're talking about, so please.
Well, just how, because this goes back probably like what, almost 3 years. Yeah. I think I was coming to the end of House of L and really wanting to get back into creator owned, and I think I put together a PDF of a whole bunch of images.
Oh yes,
of things that inspire me, and just like, hey, not necessarily anything story related, but like, here's a sequential page where someone is playing with panels in a fun way, and also here's a setting I would like to play with, and I sent that to you as like, can you come up with something, and you did.
Something completely different.
Yeah, different than this. And I like the idea, but you also mentioned, we talk a lot, and it's like, what are you working on? What other irons do you have in the fire? And you would tell me, oh, I've got this book, and I'm also developing this time-related book.
Yeah.
And then we would talk more about the stuff we were developing together. And then I distinctly remember like going to bed that night and not thinking about the project we were developing and thinking about this time book you were talking about.
Nice.
And I remember like thinking about it a while, and then like the next day just chatting with you and saying, hey, can you tell me more about this this time book?
Yeah. I think I asked you to do it first, and you were like, well, here's a list of other stuff that I'd want to do. And it was and so I was like, all right, well, I'll put that to the side, and then we'll work on this other thing that was more fitting the like the parameters that you gave me. And then I continued to work on the time book because it was such a fertile thing for me. Like I felt like I was coming up with an idea a day that was like some of the best stuff I'd ever come up with, and it was really flowing. And so I continue to work on those two things simultaneously, and we, like you said, we're friends, so we'll talk about like, I'm like, I'm still working on this time book, and I'm loving it. Like, I got this, this idea and this, and I knew that at some point you were like, I think I might want to do the time book instead, but I didn't. I've never heard before that distinctly remembering that you went to sleep thinking about one and not the one you were supposed to be on. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I just remember getting really excited about it and being like, this is my book. Don't give this to anybody else.
Yeah, and I told you, I was like, you're the person I had in mind for this. You're who I wanted in the first place. So
I did want to bring up that this is an anthology, right? So we're not going to be seeing Ashley outside of issue 1.
Yeah, that's basically true. I don't want to say you'll never see them again, but
Okay.
they won't be main characters again. Certainly, they'll be like all the characters will kind of there's be certain characters that continue through all the issues, or one specific character that continues through all the issues, and then some of the others you might see as I mean, if they survive, you might see them again, or if, even if they don't survive, the way time works, they could they could appear. Um, so each issue is its own thing, its own new character, its own complete story, its own concept, its own storytelling approach from both of us. But there is a bigger story that's developing throughout the series, and you'll be rewarded for picking up all the issues, but not punished for only picking up one. Like you can pick up issue 2 not having read issue 1, and you'll still get something, I think, pretty profound out of it.
So when it comes to this constant changeover, I want to hear from both of you. That's got to be a lot of work. Like, what goes into just, okay, page 1, new character, new story. Page 1, issue 3, new characters, like design, world, backgrounds, everything. Like, like, I'm glad you're doing it. And remember, audience, a new story every time. It's a selling feature. So yeah, if you guys could talk about just the constant cycling of new ideas.
Eric, you want to start? I mean, it sucks more for you than it does for me. So.
Yeah, like every issue is starting over from scratch, designing a whole new cast of characters. In the current issue I'm drawing, which will be in Arc 2, I'm actually rethinking my style in completely different ways. And yeah, these issues take a long time.
Yeah.
But it also takes Dennis a long time. Like,
yes.
And also I think it takes a lot out of both of us. Like every issue is just sort of like running its own marathon. They say comics in general is running a marathon, but yeah, I don't know. Like doing an entire issue, we're exhausted by the end of that.
Yeah, it's definitely, these issues take me a long time, but it's like good, and it does take a lot out of me to write them, but it's good work. It's like work that I'm proud of. It's like a good tired that I feel at the end. So even if I'm the day that I finish the script and send it to Eric, I'm like, I'm never working on this book again. I hate it. Like leave me alone. And then like, a couple of days later, I start to feel like, damn, like I really wish I could be working on Assorted Crisis events again. Like I want to be back. I want to be back into it after I've had a little bit of time to relax, and because it is so. It is, we set our sights. I do think we set our sights really, really high every issue, and and like that's just kind of what I got into comics to do, is to like not make compromises, and to like not just take people's attention for granted, not to just to do the same old thing, but to do something genuinely new and true I don't want to use profound to get about my own work, but like there should be something deeply true in the work that you're doing if you're an artist and you care about it, and that takes a lot out of you to do that. But why else are we doing this? I'm not here to make disposable work, and like this is I think that's something that Eric and I talk about a lot is disposable work, and not wanting to make disposable work, and wanting to make stuff that that means something to people, and that people will be reading for years to come, and will continue to mean something to people and mean something to us.
And I'll say that, like, say issue 5, like Dennis is like 2 days late handing me the script or whatever, and I'm just like, what the hell? I need this script. and then I get the script, and like I'm getting teary-eyed reading the final like 2 or 3 pages, and I'm like, no, all the extra time that was required for this script was worth it, and contributed to creating something memorable, and something that brought that tear to my eye or whatever. It might take us like 2 or 3 months to do these issues, but like, as Dennis said, this is all about trying to create lasting work, and it might not be successful. Like, I don't know if it's going to be lasting. No, we're not the ones to judge that. But,
so far it has been. I mean, this panel alone right here we got. I mean, as soon as I saw the finished version, it was like that. This is going to live in my head. So the day I die, like that's rad as hell.
Yeah.
And it does bring me to your other collaborators, Jordi Belair, colorist, and Hassan. Oh, I can't.
Otsmain Elhow.
There we go. Letterer. How'd you guys get linked up with them? Because I mean, they're both award winners. I assume they've got a lot going on, but
don't glaze Haas too much, okay? I've known him for too long to allow that. As I repeatedly say, I mean, let's just be honest. I'm Haas's hero, okay? Like I'm the one. No, I'm just joking. He's a very close friend, and I was actually one of the people who encouraged him to get into lettering. So all the stuff that you like that he's done, I get like at least 5 to 10% of the credit for that. And so
it's a shame you don't get any of the money.
No, I don't get any of the money. That's a constant point of contention between us, but I don't get any of the money. No, he's a very close friend, and like Eric, we talk almost every day just about other stuff, and we have such similar our approaches to the work, where he's always trying stuff, he's always pushing. He wants to do big things, he wants to go for big things as a letterer, and so I knew that he would be the perfect guy for this, because he's gonna change it up every issue if we need to. He's gonna keep it. He's gonna do what we need him to do, but he's always gonna push. And he's always gonna try new things. And that's another thing about just being in the industry for a while and getting to work with a bunch of different people, is you find those people, and then you kind of you gather them to you, and that's what this book is. And the same, actually, Jordi was much more recent. I worked with Jordi on Bloodshot at Valiant, with John Davis Hunt first, and then for the last issue, Eric came on and did, and so that
issue.
Thank you. That issue is kind of like the proto Assorted Crisis events. The entire creative team. Haas was also on that.
Okay.
It was also there on that. So and we were playing with formal stuff and time in that as well, weren't we, Eric?
Yeah, definitely.
Flashbacks.
Every comic I put a lot of pressure on myself to, like, what am I going to do different in this comic? Like even this first issue, I got the script and I said, I racked my brain for like 2 or 3 weeks. What am I going to do different? And with that Bloodshot issue, I was like, okay, there's like competing flashbacks. Like each character has their own flashbacks. How am I going to do this in my own way? I actually remember being in a bar like with Taylor, when I finally told him I cracked the code on what I was going to do specifically with the Assorted Crisis Events #1, which has to do with like the panel structure, which I don't want to get too into it. I guess I want the work to
speak for itself.
To speak for itself, yeah. But
I remember when you came up with that, and I know what you're talking about. You can see it in these pages.
Taylor, if you can go back to the movie poster page. So the color scheme on there is wild. The all against all. If you can go back a page, 2 pages. Yeah. There it is, that one. So, well, Dennis, you too. Eric or Dennis, what was your input on the color scheme for that? Because that's so set apart from all the other panels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jordi is like no input on my part, at least.
Oh, really?
Jordi is not to give too much away about the issue, but we play a lot with what's real and what's not, and the main character kind of starting to doubt what is real and what's not. And so there's kind of Jordi did this thing, this really, in my opinion, daring avant-garde thing in the best possible way of playing with the color scheme, so that it just seems like there's these different layers of reality, and kind of you're not really sure what is and is not real. And I think making the movie poster this kind of like this unreal thing, bright and extremely unreal, it's definitely intentional, and kind of echoes. You'll see echoes throughout the issue until a crescendo is reached at the end.
Yeah, and
it stands out the most.
The key to Jordi is not just she chooses appealing colors and she makes it look good, but like she's a storyteller.
Yeah.
She is actively involved in the story with every decision she makes to do with the colors. And, there were earlier pages that looked slightly different because, similar to how I work, you get started working it. And also going to what Dennis said earlier, you start working on it and then you slowly discover what you want to do and what you're trying to say in through the process. And so we have some earlier pages that look a little different, that
Yeah.
Jordy had a different approach because she discovered, I guess, the story in her mind a little later on.
Yeah, she had much more traditional colors, beautiful. We loved those colors, and then she called me and was like, "Hey, like I'm just not feeling these anymore. I really want to try something daring and different, and can I redo them?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so she did, and I just think there's, like Eric said, there's so much more pointed towards the story now than they were before, where before they were just colors, and they were great, and it would have been a great issue with those colors, and now it looks like nothing, it looks like nothing else on the shelf in a color, in terms of color, and I absolutely love that. It looks like, it really doesn't look like an American comic book on any level, both because of the work, the amount of time that Eric spent on these pages, and because of like the really daring approach I think that Jordy is taking. So I'm in love with it.
And I think that's a mandate of the book, is to be daring, but daring can be scary because we were in love with the original pages, and then we get sent this, and it is a little jarring, and there was the initial, like, daring is scary.
Yeah.
And but I guess I can speak for you. We both fell in love with this approach, like, in no time.
Yes.
But I guess you kind of want to be a little scared too.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, again, it's an image book, right? So it's the same ethos that I'm talking about. Like we're only going to be able to do something like this on an image book. So let's do it. You know what I mean? Like anything that is, not that we're just doing stuff just to do it, but it makes sense for the story. It makes all of the story beats, it enhances all of our story beats and our themes and our motifs. Like it works perfectly with what we're trying to do. Yes, it's daring. Yes, that can be scary. God damn it, let's do it. That is my approach. Like on a book like this, we have to, because there's a lot of places to do safe work. There's a lot of places to not be ambitious. Image is not one of them, and like really not. I don't want any of my work to be unambitious. So so I was excited, to be honest with you. Like I loved the earlier colors, but when I got these, I was really, really excited about what I was seeing, because I'd never seen anything like it before. Certainly not in American comics.
And it's just, that's also the dream too, is to have collaborators that genuinely care.
Yes.
That basically say, look, I know I already did work on this, but because I care so much, I'm going to throw a lot of that work out and redo it. That's like everything you want out of a collaborator.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Jordy. And Haas has relettered this thing a number of times as well, and we'll have to do one more pass before it goes to print in a week. So yeah. So it's, everyone's really working hard and doing their best and bringing something unique to it. And it was actually really fun. That was another thing. It was really fun for Jordy to see Haas and her have this kind of back and forth as she was finishing the colors, and Haas was playing with the letters as well, as you see towards the later pages, especially.
Yeah.
And
so, that's something I really, because oftentimes maybe the letterer on a comic gets finished before the colorist, and then they don't get to get in sync before it goes to the printer, because that is a lovely thing, because I do like towards the end where they are playing off each other.
It's really, it's just, again, it's collaboration, and everybody's having a fun time, and everybody's is kind of pushing themselves and being pushed by each other to do something different and to elevate the work. And so it's just been a dream in that way. And not just that, but it's like also everybody's at the top of their game. Like Jordy is as good as it gets as a colorist. Haas is as good as it gets as a letterer. Eric is as good as it gets as an artist. Like it's like everyone's experienced now. Everyone's done quite a lot of comics. So yes, we all have I feel like somehow we all have the fire of people just starting out, but we have a little more experience than we would have, certainly than I would have 5 years ago or something.
Nice. Unfortunately for the viewers, that's all we're gonna be showing you. You have to pick up the issue yourself. So remember to order at your local comic book store. But we've got some
covers.
some alternate covers as well. So
yes,
gotta have a Stepan cover if
yes.
if we're gonna launch an image book with Dennis's name on it.
Of course.
Stepan Morian, my collaborator on 20th Century Men, did another cover for us, a B cover, and then we have this amazing cover from Mike Del Mundo, who's just one of the greats, and that's a ratio cover. But I love that cover so much; it's so clever,
Yeah.
and so funny, and it just encapsulates the book perfectly. I think they're both great.
Who makes those decisions on
fun.
which cover becomes what? Like the ratio covers and that. Like who delegates all that?
We do together. I would say, Eric. What do you, like? I asked.
Yeah.
him,
So image basically sends us, advises us, I guess you would say.
I have to ask them, and they tell us. I go to somebody there, and I basically say, which of these do you think would be better for the incentive, and which would you rather have as the and I just in total transparency, I do not like incentive covers, and so I kind of had to be convinced to do that, because it's for me a tragedy that more people won't be able to order that one, but but I was convinced, and then so then it's just whichever image thinks is best for each, because I'm in love with all of them. I wish everybody could have as many of all of them as possible. I'm so proud of these two, and then you already showed the next one for issue 2. Like all of these are all three covers for all three for all the issues are amazing, and obviously Eric and I have seen further into the future in terms of the covers, and they're just, some of them are just amazing. But
yeah, I put together this PDF, and it was so tempting to put a lot of the future covers in there, but I have to restrain myself, because there is a lot of just amazing covers coming up.
Yeah, and what we have here is amazing too. I mean, your cover is great.
Yeah.
Artyom's cover is amazing. I think you were saying like he's one of the artists that you could just hang his stuff up in a gallery. It's so
this
beautiful.
Is like fine art right here.
Yeah.
Like look at those knuckles. Okay, look at the fingers on that guy's knuckles. Look at the way that the head dissolves into that cubist thing. Like, it's just, look at how much is going on, and how crazy it all looks, and how beautiful. It's just, I can't say enough about
it's Guernica, I want to say.
And if you read the story, it really is also the story. It really says something about the story as well. He was inspired by the story for that one, which is not always possible with variant covers, but it's just, I just love it so much. There's every little inch, or every centimeter is interesting.
And when we approach these artists to do the variant covers, it's kind of a wide open berth, I guess. Like, we basically say, okay, you can draw the broken man, and here's some designs, which is what Walta did here, Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Or you could do something story focused based on the issue, or I guess the third option is just like play with broken time.
Yeah, like any interpretation, create your own story with the concept of broken time. And so we have covers that kind of are all three of those, and I love this Walta one because I've said this before, but there are certain images that like transcend the comic that they're on, and become this kind of almost this perfect metaphor, and this future guy with a jetpack scrounging through the dumpsters out back is just, it's such a perfect image. You don't need to know anything about the book at all. You don't need to read the book at all for you to get, and it's just this just very, very somber, sad thing. And it captures the emotion of the book perfectly, but I think it captures the emotion of the moment perfectly, like our current moment. And so it like transcends comics and becomes like a work of art in and of itself that makes you feel something, I think.
Yeah, check out this work of art right here.
Ooh, that's real nice.
The original.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, Dennis sent me a gift. This is just gorgeous. Dennis knew how much I loved this cover, and just how over the moon I was for it, and he and
you're a big Walta fan in general, right? This was like a bucket list thing for you to have him draw one of your characters, I think, is what you told me.
Yeah, I mean, it's always just amazing to see any artist draw a character you've designed. It's a strange feeling. It's
Yeah.
euphoric, but yeah, I mean, this piece is gorgeous. This is like one of my most prized possessions now.
I'm glad.
Nice. I did want to ask about the use of crisis. Like that's got a lot behind it in comics for the past 40 years. I'm guessing that was the intent, or did crisis come to you later on?
It came to us. It came to me later. I had this idea of time breaking down for a while, and I knew that the elevator pitch was like if Crisis on Infinite Earth was happening to normal people, but I didn't necessarily have the title nailed down, and I was cycling through stuff madly and sending these long lists to Eric, and he was like, "Yeah, all right, that looks pretty okay." Not clearly not thrilled with any of them. And then I was like, well, and then it, like from the bolt, it came. It's actually anyway. It doesn't matter where it came from, but I was reading something not comics related, and it kind of just came to me. Assorted crisis events, and not just the word crisis, but crisis event. Has this meaning in for the comics, for the hardcore comic book community anyway. I'm really learning that it means absolutely nothing to a lot of readers, and that's also really cool because it works on the level of it's just a bunch of terrible things that are happening to people and then trying to survive it. So that's how we knew. I think that the title was it had this added resonance if you know comics, or if you're a hardcore comics reader, or a hardcore DC reader. But that's really not what the book is about. It's about people. It's as it says on the tin, assorted crisis events. It's people going through really terrible times in their lives and trying to survive them, or how they deal with them. Finding out how they deal with them.
Yeah, it took a while to come to that title because recently I was looking at some earlier files from the first issue, and I always name the files based on the project I'm working on, and those early pages are listed as like time book or whatever, like time number 1, page 2, because we hadn't settled on it.
I was trying temp. We tried Broken Time Machines. That was it for a while. There was a bunch. I had I had reams of lists. It was awful. I felt like I was banging my head against a wall. And then,
but that's the thing, is that as soon as you found out the title, you loved it, and as soon as you told it to me, it was like of course that is it. There was no question. As soon as that's the thing about titles is maybe if you have a little bit of doubt, it's not necessarily the right title. But if it's just an instant yes, then I guess you got lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I think I'm really, again, the benefit of time, right? Because that if we had a couple months to plan the book or whatever, it wouldn't have come. But because we took our time and we had a lot of time working on it and thinking about it, we were able to, I think, make sure everything is just right. And like you said, that's kind of the ethos for the book is let's take our time and make the best possible comic that we can, and make sure that everything is as good as it can be, to not just for our own success, but for the artistic success of the book, and for because that's how you show readers that you care, like that the design is like, let's talk for a second about the design of the book, which is Tom's work, right? Like it's so perfect, and and it adds so much to the book that it looks like it's based off of hazard stickers and hazard labels. But then he also came up with this symbol, the hourglass.
The hourglass.
The hourglass type symbol, which is so you have the the book's title itself, but then we, as a stand-in, all we have to do is show that little symbol, and it contains the book somehow also, and that's what a feat that is, and what a not that I'm a brand expert, but what brilliant branding I think that is, to be able to do that, and how that has really come to help define the book. I think the visual identity of the book, and just having something like that is just so cool, and the thought that I'm not going to get into it here. I'll let Tom talk about it sometime in some interview that he does. But there's so much thought that was put in. There's so much thought behind that choice, and and where he drew that from, and it's just every person doing that the book is amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, like he's another who's at the top of his game right now.
Right. Famous for his X-Men Krakoa era rebranding, but has been doing incredible work even for many years before that. Since he did Zero, where he was doing amazing stuff there, and just he's done a lot of your favorite design, probably for a lot of your favorite Image books and creator-owned books.
Right.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches for me to be surrounded by by all these creative dynamos. So yeah, I feel very fortunate. This book, I mean, we've been working on it for a couple of years, but speaking of time, it just feels like it hasn't been any more relevant than today.
It sucks. I hate it. I hate how just how much it feels like it was written today. You know, the first issue was written more than 2 years ago. I wrote the first issue while I was still writing 20th Century Men, and it feels it feels more relevant now than it did then, and I wish it didn't.
Everything's broken.
Yeah, everything's broken. Everything's breaking down. Planes are falling out of the sky. Everything's on fire. It's so much of the book was about speaking to or channeling this feeling that I think me and a lot of my friends and family are having, and it would be lovely to say that we pulled ourselves out of it, and maybe in 5 or 10 years, this book will feel like a historical piece instead of a current events.
Moment.
Yeah, instead of a current events book. But right now, at least for me, it feels very topical and very timely, to make a little pun.
On the plus side, though, you could pass yourself off as a prophet and start that Tolstoy cult you were talking about.
That's right. This could be my first step into
the first scripture of camp. It's coming
campers.
To you now.
Welcome, campers. Welcome, campers.
I just want to bring up, I love this page turn. This is rad. Just from Eric, you really executed this so well, of just all of this going on and then cut. Come on, get out of the shot. It's so well.
Thank you very much. Eric killed it.
It's like this robot. I sometimes I look back at this stuff and just think I'm a crazy person, because this robot
so
was
unnecessary.
Four panels, 5 panels maybe, and I killed myself to design it and make it look consistent and clear.
Yeah.
And I do look at some of Stepan's work, and it this stuff isn't as if he's designing a robot, it isn't as consistent, and it doesn't matter. You don't actually notice as long as you have the general shape and the general design, it's fine. I didn't notice it wasn't consistent until I put I put it under a microscope. And then I look at this and go why did I kill myself to?
Well, you guys are different artists and have different approaches, and I think allows us to do different things. That's the thing, is I look, you couldn't do Watchmen with anyone but Gibbons. Alan Moore gets a lot of the credit for Watchmen, as he deserves. It's a brilliant book, but you could only but Gibbons could somehow fit a fucking world into a tiny panel, 1/9 of a page, where it was just endlessly deep, and it had 7 figures, and that's just something that they, and all this depth, and it's just
and it was clear, and
it was clear. It's perfectly composed, emotionally composed. You can only do stuff like that with Gibbons, and it's not to say that any one artist is better than the other, or any style or approach is better than another. But but a book like this is only possible with somebody who has your kind of architecture sickness, exactly, the disease that you're afflicted with, that makes you think of these things, like an architect or a scientist, and or an engineer, and every piece has to be exactly right, and every decision has to be, you have to have a dissertation behind it, and and that's, I think that's fantastic. what makes the book work is you doing that, and me, I hope, giving you something interesting to work with.
Yeah, Eric has talked about your, I don't know if you would call it an ethos or a philosophy of like the kinds of artists there are, but that like Stepan is he's
A poet.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too reductive, because it is very reductive to talk about artists like this, because there's so much that goes into it that I don't even understand. But from my perspective as a writer, I just try to see what makes an artist tick, how they work, and some are, I do look at writing for Stepan, or I look at his work as a kind of poetry, because it has this gorgeous flow, and it's extremely emotional and extremely human, and lush, and like the line work is and the ink work is so beautiful. Everything is just, it's just so pretty. Also great storytelling, of course, all that stuff at the base. For me to want to work with an artist, the storytelling has to be primary and excellent. And so everyone I work with is an amazing storyteller. But then on top of that, whatever it is, Eric is extremely, he's, like I said, an architect or an engineer. He's extremely experimental, and extremely wants to play with the formal aspects of the comic book page, and how time works on the page, and what you're capable of doing with the technology of comics. And so when I write for him, I write for that. Comics has its own technology. It is its own technology. And so when I write for him, I write for that. Whereas so much of what Stepan does on top of the great storytelling, it's like he'll switch his style around a lot.
It's stunning.
It's stunning, right? It's absolutely amazing. And so I would try to make sure that I'm switching my voice a lot with him, and that I'm really paying a lot of attention to the voice of the characters, and I do that on Assorted Crisis Events too, with each individual issue. But I'm much more focused on, well, what can we do to play with the formal? What can we do to experiment formally with Assorted Crisis Events? And just because I know Eric is good at that and likes doing that, and is going to take whatever my suggestion is and elevate it hugely. He likes the constraint, and figuring out his own new constraints. And like the example I always use is, there's this writing group called Urupo, who describe themselves as the rats who create the maze that they then escape. And I think of what we're doing as kind of that.
Yeah, totally.
That's wild.
That's rad. Yeah.
So the first 5 issues are basically completed. With Jordy and Haas still have to add their touch to it, but I'm working on arc 2 right now, and if all works out, we hope this series can go on for a while,
forever, 100 years.
I mean, Dennis comes up with a new idea for an issue like every day.
I love it. I just feel like, something I talk about a lot, at least with my friends, is the difference between like a story and a story engine, and something that I've been searching for. If you're doing an ongoing book, what you're looking for are you want to tell stories, of course, but like, you also really want to find story engines. And story engine, I kind of is my own little thing that I define as something that it's like a space to allow other stories, like having mutants is kind of a story engine. Like it's not really a story in and of itself, but it allows other stories to be told. Or Swamp Thing turning out to be a plant that is a man, or that thinks it's a man instead of a man that has become merged with plants. That's a story engine there. And so it implies other stories. Batman is a story engine, right? Like all the superheroes are story engines. Alien rocketed to Earth from a dying planet and gets superpowers. And so with this, I didn't really go in with the idea of the time breaking down as my first thing. What I really wanted to do was create a story engine, a powerful story engine that I thought would allow me to tell a lot of different stories and a lot of different kinds of stories. And so this is I think one of the best I've ever come up with, and in the sense that I'm inspired by it. I find that, as Eric said, I'm constantly coming up with new interesting to me anyway, ideas for stories that we could do, and just getting super excited about them, and how we can play with the form, and how we can play with, and how we can also talk about stuff that's real and important to us, and to the world, I think.
Right.
Oh, you're constantly keeping things exciting for me as you jump into our chat and explain your new idea and explain how you're cracking the code on the next issue.
Yeah.
Because it is a long process. You start with the idea, but then it's just sort of, there's a long process of just cracking the code on how we're going to pull this off.
Yeah, and how to tell the story, and how to make that a part of the story, and not just, it's easy enough to I mean, it's not easy enough. Like, look, I spent a lot of time thinking about the story too, but then there's the added challenge of, well, is there a way we can tell this story that hasn't been told before, that uses the technology of the comic book in a new and interesting way? And not, I don't know if every issue of the series will have something totally totally mind blowing, but certainly I think a lot of them will, and that's really, and I'm really proud of that. And it's difficult for both of us, I know, but
endlessly exciting, even on the tough days.
Yeah, exactly. It's good frustrating somehow, because it's not dumb work, it's not work that you just have to do. It's work that you're in the end you're proud of, and so yeah.
Well, and it looks like from the backgrounds themselves, I don't know if it's happened yet, but I could foresee a situation where Deniz is just flipping through old issues and grabbing, like, oh yeah, what's up with the caveman there? What's up with the nun just watching this happen, right? Just like Eric is filling the background with so much that, like, he's just giving ideas away. And stressing himself out about it. So I hope they come back around.
Well, that was part of the, some of that is in the pitch. A few of those random characters are in the pitch or in the script, and then but like one of the things that excited me, but Eric adds so many.
Yeah.
And but one of the things that really excited me, and something that we talked about a lot, was like, with a book like this, no crowd scene ever had to be boring again, and all of them could be like really interesting and like funny, and just have like background gags, and something that I always was pointing to was, I love The Private Eye by Marcos Martin and Brian K. Vaughan, and like the conceit of that was such that everyone was wearing masks, and so you had, like, every time you went on the street, it was just this insane gaggle of characters that were super distinctive and vibrant, and life on the street seemed more vibrant somehow because of it, and because I don't have to do the drawing, it seems like a genius way of making otherwise potentially not mundane. I don't want to say mundane, because characters are never mundane, but it's just this added layer of creativity. Like, you see here that there's people, all these people from different time periods, or later she goes to a single bar, or she goes to a bar, and all these people are interacting that wouldn't normally interact, and like, that's fun. And I did put some of that in the script, and Eric again did, some of that being like, it's a future man, and then Eric has to decide what that is, and stuff like that. And so it's like, that is just, I think that is just one layer, an added layer of creativity that we get to play with the book, that makes it so rich, and so interesting. And yes, it has inspired, or it will inspire stories. Like, I've already come up with stories based on some of those characters. Who knows if we'll get to them, but just on the immediate level, it just makes that panel much more interesting to see, like a pilgrim, or a Victorian lady, or a future robot man walking next to a caveman. Like, that's just visually
a goth walking with a Visigoth.
Yeah,
a goth
exactly.
chick walking with a Visigoth.
Yeah, stuff like that is genius. Yeah, I love that.
The script, Dennis' scripts are full of just like throwaway stuff of just like, and in the background there's like a goth chick walking with a Visigoth, and then I put it in there, and I'm like, nobody's gonna notice this.
Yeah. Well, it's all.
But
for
that's
us.
the fun.
Like, that's like, I guess both of our theory of the case is, even if people don't notice it the first time, maybe they'll notice it the next time. And even if they never notice it consciously, maybe they'll notice it subconsciously. Some of it. And that would be like 5 people who notice the goth Visigoth joke, but for them, they're gonna love it. You know what I mean? Like, and there was all kinds of stuff like that in 20th Century Man, where it's like 5 people got a joke that I put in there, but man, those people were really into it, and that's worth it for me.
And that's something that I can say about almost all your work, or pretty much all your work, is that it's meant to be reread.
Oh, absolutely.
It is, yeah.
Yep.
We need to do whatever we can to not make these comics disposable.
Yeah, that's. I mean, and I think that makes it feel that. I mean, if, to the extent that they feel different, comics that I work on, and this comic in particular, I think it's going to be that. You can feel the amount of work and thought and creativity that was put on these pages, and it didn't happen on a deadline, and it didn't happen on a page a day thing, and I had 3 days to write the script or whatever. It was like, no, I thought about this for a very long time before I even started writing the script, and it took me a long time to write the script, and I wrote like half of 7 other scripts that are completely different stories that sometimes that might come somewhere down the line and might not, and I wrote notes for 50 issues, and then Eric got the first script, and then he took his sweet time with it in the best possible way. I mean that with all,
no, 100%.
And it's like, and it's just there, and I think I hope people will respond to it, but even if nobody does, like, I think both of us are super, super proud of this, and even if we only get to do 9 or 10 issues or whatever, like we'll be super proud to have done them, and it's like something that we can hand to people and say, like, this is what we're capable of, and this is what comics is capable of.
He's got at least 50 issue ideas, folks, so make sure to order this book. Buy it every month.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the final order cutoff is in a couple weeks, probably like February 17th or something. Yeah.
February 17th.
So comic shops don't order every image book for the shelf. There's a lot of comic shops that will only order like big 2 stuff, and then if you make a request, they'll get you image books. So you do, for anybody listening, I would highly recommend reach out to your local comic shop and tell them if you want a book in advance. Otherwise, you might not be able to get it.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss out on this.
Definitely. You don't want a second print of this, do you? No, you probably do. It's worth it for the story, maybe. I don't know.
No. Yeah. You want to get on the ground floor. You want to say you were there from the beginning, not
day one reader.
Definitely.
Yeah. Not when everybody knows this is the next saga, which is something that I heard Eric say on another podcast. So
it
feels
like it. Yep.
Oh no, my words have been misconstrued.
No, I'm just not saying.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of the orders, I don't know if you want to. You don't have to go into this if you don't want, but I know that Absolute Martian Manhunter coming up this in the same month. Any? How's that? Is that for you?
That's been great. I'm really, again, it's another opportunity for me to learn from my collaborator. I'm working with Javier Rodriguez and learning a ton about his approach, and he's got such a beautiful and clear ethos is a perfect word for it. He has a philosophy about comics that's different from Eric, and it's different from Stepan, and yet there's all these commonalities too, because everyone's so dedicated to storytelling. It's kind of just a difference of approach to the storytelling, and so adjusting my work to him has been amazing, and I've learned a lot, and I'm really, really proud. I think the first issue is really, really special, and we get to do some stuff that's never been done in comics before. Again, and I've gotten a ton of support from everyone at DC, from Scott Snyder through the full editorial to the senior vice presidents and stuff. So everyone's really behind the book, and people seem really excited about the Absolute universe, and there's so much to live up to there. With all the great books, Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, which is all of them are amazing and so unique, artistically unique, and we're also launching with a Flash and Green Lantern, which are also really, really cool. And so it's been great. I it's a book that it feels like a creator-owned book in terms of how much freedom we have, and because
awesome.
we get to take this character, this Martian Manhunter kind of character, and totally reinvent them for the new times, and that's not an opportunity that you get very often. I mean, I get that, I guess, every month on Ultimates, but it is rare. I mean, that's my situation is very rare in that way, and in that way, it's been really I've been really lucky, and in Martian Manhunter in particular, I get to drill down on like a specific character and setting, and do that cool thing of creating a specific city for that character, which is one of my favorite things about DC Comics, is you get these cities that reflect the character in some kind of way. And so I can reveal that here, maybe that we have, like, it's not a new city in the DC universe because it actually goes back to the original Silver Age stuff, but I get to characterize that city and have John, who, I guess I should probably give the elevator pitch, I'm sorry. By the book FBI agent John Jones has his mind invaded by an other dimensional consciousness that calls itself the Martian, and it's completely alien and kind of alters his perceptions about crime and punishment, good and evil, and and makes him question whether there's even such a thing as free will. And it's psychedelic. It's like a little bit of Thomas Pynchon, a little bit of Philip K. Dick, a little bit of Peter Milligan, and it's completely wild, and I'm super, super proud of it. And actually, Eric, I think you read the first issue, or maybe not, but yeah, I don't know.
I look at these pages, and I don't know how you get anything done when these pages come into your inbox. Don't you just want to like pour over them for the next like 5 hours?
They're very cool.
They are just jaw-dropping.
Yeah. So I feel very lucky to be. I feel lucky to be on all my projects right now because they're all really different, right? Like I feel all of the artists that I'm working with are doing very different things, and yet somehow beautiful and pushing me to be better and different. So yeah, I hope you'll check them out. I hope you'll check all of them.
So you're learning a lot from Javier Rodriguez, right? Like,
yeah.
I chat with Deniz often, and he will excitedly come into the chat and say, I just learned this amazing thing from Javier Rodriguez about his philosophy. What do you think of this? And we'll both be geeking out about these ideas, because this stuff really excites us.
Yeah, like
just the form of comics.
Exactly. And it's not, for me, it's like people have their philosophies and they can adhere to them very strictly, and I kind of still don't feel confident at all that, I feel confident about certain things, but I'm still very open. And so it's like being able to see comics in a different way, see through a different set of eyes, and no one is correct or better, because I do think at base everybody I work with has this same kind of dedication to like clarity and storytelling, but kind of has come to different conclusions about how best to get there. And has different insights, and I think there can be a lot of cross-pollination too, like I think, but also just difference of philosophies that are not, one person is not right or the other. It's just kind of like, this is their project, this is their artistic project, and so I get to kind of take on also these different artistic projects depending on the book. Like Javier is obsessed with complexity through simplicity, and so a lot of my writing is and that's perfect for this very confusing for the main character, at least, psychedelic book, because I want it to be clear for the audience, and so it allows me to experiment more and pushes me in that direction, and so that's really exciting. And then I do a book like this, and there is, yes, we're always trying to go for clarity, but there's a serious complexity through complexity in this book too, and so it's just different, and it exercises different muscles, and it makes me think in different ways, and I think lets me grow as an artist or as a creator, which has been, that's the thing that gets me most excited. And yeah, like I just love talking to Eric. Like Eric and I talk for hours about this stuff. I talk to Javi about this stuff for hours. I talk to Sipan, like everybody is just so geeked about the form of comics and what's possible, and that's really an exciting place to be. And it's not necessarily true of everybody in the industry. Sorry.
I was gonna say now I gotta. Colin, we both need to quickly come up with philosophies about art. Holy shit!
Yeah.
What are we gonna
do? Dennis, what books are you reading right now that you can recommend? Something current?
Comics?
Anything?
Yeah. Well,
anything.
I'm always reading Ice Cream Man, and that's my favorite comic book going right now. And the creative team on that book is they're all close friends of mine. And I just think it's brilliant. Month after month, I actually just contributed a short story for issue 43, which was awesome because I got to be in it with Grant Morrison and Matt Fraction, which was awesome. And then, otherwise, I think, you should check out all, like, if you like superhero stuff, check out all the Absolute books, check out all Ultimates. There's a plethora of amazing indie books out there from Image, and especially from Image right now, that I can't recommend enough. And there's also a bunch of new stuff coming up. There's launching the same time as us is a book called Monkey Meat, which is a relaunch with Juniba, and that's going to be amazing. You're going to love that. Definitely pick that up. And Matt Rosenberg's launching a new book the same month, and Tyler Boss is also launching a book the same month, and all of them I've read the first issue, and all of them are great. And so there's just a lot of really, really great stuff coming out of comics right now. It's
an exciting time.
Yeah, it feels like people are pushing hard and are energized after a couple of down years. Everything seems to be kind of coming alive right in time. Hopefully the tariffs won't kill it, but we'll see.
So join the fight, viewers, and order Assorted Crisis Events.
Yes, please.
It's a movement. No,
it's a movement. Exactly. It's like the Ultimates. It's a movement.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
This is great. This is super fun.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
Man. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I am sweating buckets over here.
Oh no! I don't know.
In cold Calgary.
Yeah, well, it was. It's just like a in-person thing that we do on WhatsApp, so this is great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, man. This was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast.
No.
So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.